In 1932, FDR, that is Franklin D. Roosevelt, the American president, signed what he called a New Deal for the American people. The idea was simple: to get a nation ravaged by the Great Depression of 1929 back on its feet. He went on an infrastructure building spree. Railroads, highways, dams, airports, waterways, everything was constructed. It generated employment. It became an asset that's proving to be handy 90 years from now. Today, the Modi government is also looking to sign somewhat of a similar deal, but in the digital world. And this will be signed with social media companies, with OTT platforms, and with digital media publishers. Now, why is this deal important? Because what happens today will decide the ethos of free speech in India for the next 100 years, for the next one doesn't know how many years. Because today, with growing digitization and in a nation which will have 1 billion users by 2023, the right to free speech is very, very important. Of course, the judiciary, the constitution makes exceptions to the right to free speech. You cannot go on making provocative statements against a community, against a religion. That part is taken care of. But to have the freedom to express oneself on any social media platform is very, very important. We'll restrict the discussion today to social media platforms, given the entire fiasco between Twitter and the government of India. But this is also about defining how will we ensure free speech, and free speech which is not regulated by the social media companies nor by the government. Because in the last video I did on the subject, I emphasize that the answer to social media regulating individuals cannot be government regulating social media. So that's very important. And to simply put it, in the battle between Twitter and the Modi government, the winner has to be free speech and free speech alone, because either side winning doesn't do well for the future of free speech in India. That's what we're going to discuss today. Now, the first thing we have to understand what this battle between the Modi government and Twitter is about. Is it about giving BJP a fair voice while taking away the fair voice from, say, the Congress, the TMC, the Samajwadi Party? Absolutely not. The battle is not about making sure that BJP gets a bigger voice on any social media platform, as many are starting to make it sound. It's not about ensuring that Sambit Patra tweets never gets labeled while Randeep Surjewala tweets get labeled all the time. No, it's not. It's about ensuring that Twitter does not have a say. I'll say Twitter because we'll take the example of Twitter, but I mean all social media companies. But to say that Twitter has no right in deciding or no right in interfering between a political discourse of two parties or any number of parties. What is this battle about? This battle is about ensuring that someone like Sambit Patra or Tushar Gupta or Randeep Surjewala or Narendra Modi or Rahul Gandhi or anyone sitting in the most remotest corners of India, they all have equal rights when it comes to free speech on the internet. They are censored on equal parameters, they are restricted on equal parameters, they are given equal parameters for their content evaluation. No one has to be more equal than the other. This is what this battle is about, and this is where the free speech kicks in. Now, the important parallel I want to draw again is between the Jack Dorsey's thread from January 14, just after he suspended President Trump's Twitter account in the wake of the rioting at the US Capitol, and the guidelines that the government has proposed. These guidelines, which are in the center of this entire storm, were pushed out on 25th Feb. The companies had 3 months to abide by them. And I want to draw a parallel here amongst a few guidelines. Now, Jack Dorsey said that, we suspended Donald Trump's Twitter account on the best information available. Here's the problem. What is this best information? Where is this best information coming from? Where is the process? Who is giving the green signal to call something manipulated? Who's giving the green signal to call something a lie? And the government guidelines were looking to address this in a very smart manner. The government guidelines simply stated that if you want to restrict someone's tweet or someone's content, simply notify them, issue them a warning, and give them the right to explain themselves. Now, this can be done within a day, within 2 days. That's for the social media companies to decide. But the idea is that if Twitter wants to take down something I have posted, which their fact checkers might think that could be provocative, is incorrect, is not in the best interest of the country, say some misinformation about the COVID vaccines, I should have the right to explain myself. I should have the right to contest against Twitter immediately censoring me. But at the same time, the guidelines miss a very important point. There should also be a mechanism where the government or the law enforcement agencies, the officer which is supposed to work with the law enforcement agencies, is able to take down provocative comment or content against one community, one religion, or any other group immediately. The problem that happens often is that someone makes a provocative comment and 10, 20, 30 people respond to it by the provocative statements of their own. So this is where the government or the representative of the governments and of the social media companies need to work together to come forward and ensure that the hate speech gets curtailed at the earliest. And while the likes of Sambit Patra, because that's the example most recent, the idea is to give Sambit Patra a chance to explain himself, and for anyone for that matter. Twitter has to give people a chance to explain themselves, and that is what the guidelines propose, which was very mature. And even then, if Twitter goes ahead and censors the content, the guidelines also say that the individual whose content has been censored will have a legal recourse option, which is very good because it is in the spirit of free speech. Today, if your fundamental rights are violated, you can obviously approach the Supreme Court. And here's the important point, the other guidelines. The idea of a nodal officer, the grievance redressal officer, and this is where my concerns are about the free speech issue. Say I as an individual is censored by Twitter for whatever reasons. I feel it's incorrect. I go to the grievance redressal officer, who's the one officer who's supposed to manage such requests for 17 million to 410 million people on any platform. 17 million is what Twitter has right now as per the government release. 410 million is what WhatsApp and Facebook have right now. So is just having one nodal officer enough for such requests? I think not. What the platforms need is an army of grievance redressal officers, because these issues will only increase. Imagine the number of tweets that are made every year, 200 billion. Imagine what if 500 million or 600 million users came from Facebook tomorrow. Can we just have 5, 10, 15, 20 grievance redressal officers addressing the concerns? Imagine the bureaucratic delays. Imagine the cost of censoring someone because there are not enough people to address the grievances. And this is where the government, I think, missed the trick. It's a good idea to have a grievance redressal officer, but it would have been a better idea to have, say, one grievance redressal officer for every 500,000 people. That makes 2 officers per million people. And then depending on the platform scale, have as many people as warranted. For instance, Twitter would then require to have 35 to 40 people. Facebook would need far more, say 800 to 1,000 people. But given the scales at which these companies operate, it's not unthinkable. Rather, it's very good because it makes the platform more accountable, it makes the platform more accessible, it makes the platform more transparent in its process, and hence generates more revenue, more people on its platform, and probably more ads. It makes it very friendly for the people in the long run. So the entire idea of having a grievance officer, I feel, was not sufficiently addressed, but at least a start was made. The next point is, what can be made better here? What did the government otherwise miss in its guidelines for free speech? Now, even if you get the grievances officer in place, the point is a lot of this speech may have to go through some vetting, through the judicial process, and the bureaucratic delays would be indispensable. It is something we have to live with. But what if the social media companies start acting arbitrarily with everything? What if they just use the bureaucratic delays to start censoring the voices, say in the wake of an election? What if someone who's a very crucial voice for either parties, Congress or BJP or even Aam Aadmi Party for that matter, is censored right before a crucial election day? And that is where my problem is. What if it happens to an individual? So the government really needs to work on some fine also. For instance, the state of Florida just very recently, earlier this week, passed a law which said that if any social media company took down any political candidate, just not Democratic or Republicans, both of them, they would be fined $250,000 per day. So can there be a fine in process where if a social media company fails to comply with an order again and again and again, they're fined heavily? And there was also this one mention in the guidelines that a monthly report needs to be published as to how many grievances have been addressed, what were the complaints, what were the nature of the complaints. Can this report be ensured to be very transparent and accountable, very fair in its assessment? How does one ensure that? So these were the gaps that were still there in the guidelines. So the government made a good start, but there was still a lot missing and still a lot to be covered to ensure free speech for people on the platform. That was my major concern. But even though these guidelines do a brilliant job of addressing what Jack Dorsey said in his January's thread, because that thread is very important as it sets a precedent as to how social media companies will respond in the future. Probably a lot of observers and stakeholders have underestimated the importance of the thread, but it gives you a peek into how these giants think, into how the CEOs think. And the guidelines that were made just a month later, they actually address some of the problems in that thread. Now, lastly, the capacity of the Indian government. We saw what China did with cryptocurrency. They banned it, they banned the operations, they're coming down hard on mining, the market has fallen. And India is also a market of billion users, if not now, someday. Facebook has generated 400 million users, and surely with its partnership with Reliance, and Google is also partnering with Reliance just to brainstorm, they will get to a billion users. While the revenues will take time to catch up, because India is not a very revenue heavy market. It's a market heavy for its number of users, but someday the revenues will catch up. So the capacity of the Indian government for sure is to create a set of guidelines which have social media companies towing the line. And towing the line is simply following the law of the land. You do not become bigger than the law of the land. You do not become bigger than the voices of the representatives which have been elected by a very fair process. So the idea is to ensure that the law of the land supersedes the arbitrary policies made by these companies, and that is where free speech will be ensured. And as I said earlier, this battle between Twitter and the government of India, it's all about ensuring one thing alone. Free speech needs to win, and the political, economical, socio reality, all those kinds of realities of social media platforms ensured. And the guidelines do a good enough job, but there are some gaps that we just discussed that need to be filled. Nevertheless, a good start, but it needs to be made a lot better. Thank you.